everybody, and welcome to another hobby cheating video. And this one's going to be quick, so much in a big change from my last one. And this one's called Just Make a Wet Palette. And that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about making a wet palette. Now don't switch off just yet. I hear you. I hear what you're saying out there, viewer. I can hear you saying, I don't care. I've got a normal palette and it's fine. And you know what? You're right. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. In many videos you've seen me using a palette like this, and it's fine. I used it for a long time. I said, wet palette, who cares? Who needs it? Like, come on. Really? And so if that's what you're saying, hey, I get it. I hear you. Now let me talk about why you and I were wrong, okay? So this is my wet palette I made myself. And as you can see, it is super high tech. This is a little Ziploc or something, Rubbermaid, I guess. I don't know what it is. Some kind of little Rubbermaid plastic thing that I stole from up in the cupboard. So this was $0. And then I took 2 sponges that were like this, that were also sort of upstairs. And then I cut them. I cut the little roundy edges to make them flat so they sat against each other flatly. And then I put a little piece of parchment paper on top, which I also stole from upstairs. So, other than raiding my wife's kitchen supplies, this cost me $0 and took me about 2 minutes. So, I would call this about the most minimal of time investment. Okay? Now, why do you care? Alright. I've heard people say before, oh, I hate wasting paint or some nonsense like this. Okay? Well, I don't like it either. So this white paint right here, I don't know how well you can see that. There we go. You kind of get it. It's the light evened out. This white paint right here, I put this on here before I left to go on my trip. I'm going to say more than like the night before I left from my trip. Okay? When I move my brush around in that is still white paint that I could paint with. There you go. That has sat there for 48 hours. More than, okay? And is perfectly fine and usable white paint. Right? Okay? Now, that's pretty good. So in addition to saving you money, because your paints will just stay active longer, when you're actually painting, your paints just naturally get thinned. One of the things that I say to people all the time is you need to thin your paints more. This automatically is going to water down your paint some. You take a little paint out, you put it on top of the parchment, and there you go. It gets watered down. Now, I still can mix some thinner, some glaze. I still use this stuff if I want to keep it really thin and get it watered down. But it is amazing how much smoother you can blend everything, okay, when you use this. Because you can put your 3 colors on here. They're all very wet. I can pull them. I can mix them. I can get lots of different shades in between them, quick and easy. And the key is they stay very wet. If you do that on your palette, like if I were to put a couple drops of paint here in the middle of the palette and start spreading them around and mixing them, what happens when you thin it out? Well, it dries. It dries like instantaneously, right? I'm sure we've all encountered that. Then you get chalkiness, you get all that stuff. No good, okay? With this was a few minutes. My paints stay wet. They blend incredibly well. I spend less money. I automatically have them nice and perfectly ready to work. You don't need to water them down anymore if you don't want to. Easy peasy, okay? Do this. Trust me, you will not regret it. Look, I did this for $0. What's the worst case if you give this a try? You try it and you hate it. Cool, throw it out. You spent $0. Or just give your wife her stuff back. Or your husband, or put it back in your kitchen, whatever it happens to be. No loss, right? You have 0 risk, 0 cost, or, less than $2, let's say, if you go splurge on some new sponges. And it can greatly enhance. Now, I'll give you a couple quick tips here. So what I did is exactly what I said. I took the Ziploc, right? I took the sponges, I cut them, took a little piece of parchment paper, cut it to the size of the sponges. That's it. That's really all it is. But I'll give you a couple other quick tips. When you put the parchment down, You want to make sure you really push it in, smooth it out. You need the parchment to be nice and wet. Okay, it's semi-permeable. You want it to be nice and wet. You don't want any water collecting on top. So if there's like water sitting on top, you just want to wipe that off with like a paper towel or something real quick. Okay, but it should be wet, but not with any water on top. If it's too dry, you'll know quickly because it'll start doing this and start like bunching up where it's part of it's wet and part of it's dry. If that happens, just add some more water in there. And that leads to my next tip, which is, I don't know if you can see my water level in there. If I kind of move it around, you can. My water level is more than what the sponge can hold. It's coming up to about half of the sponge height. That seems to be pretty appropriate. Keeps the sponge nice and soaked. Keeps the air in here humid when I have it closed. And keeps the parchment paper nice and wet. That's really all there is to it. When I say this took me 2 minutes to put together, it's really not an exaggeration. Cutting my sponges, because I had these weird shaped sponges, was the longest part of this task. Okay? So, that's your hobby cheating for today. Build yourself a wet palette. 48 hours, it kept my paint usable, wet, easy to go. Keeps your paints thin, easy to work with, helps you blend easier, gets rid of your hard lines, gets rid of the chalkiness. So between helping you be a better painter and saving you money, I don't know that there's much more you can do for less than $2 in less than 2 minutes. So even if you think you don't need to do it because you're happy with your palette, which I get, I was in that boat for like 2 years. Just do it. Just give it a shot. As I said, worst case, oh no, you threw out a piece of parchment paper. You put your sponges away. Who cares? Nothing to lose, everything to gain. There's your hobby cheating. We'll see you next time.